Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Gordon Frayne. We are back talking about Bitcoin for Q2 and where price is going to move to next. As always, if you enjoy the content, please make sure to give it a thumbs up below, hit that subscribe button as well, smash the bell notification icon, and don't forget to grab your completely free copy of The Rise of Bitcoin, linked below in the description. Grab it now for yourself, and let's talk about Bitcoin. So, for the past essentially 2.5 to 3 months, we've been in a pretty strong downtrend for the price action of Bitcoin. By the time we got to the middle of January here, we got all the way up to 109,000 US dollars. And clearly, since that period in the middle of January when we had those highs, we've been in a pretty strong downtrend that we have not managed to pierce above over the course of the past couple of months. We've been hanging around in this area, essentially between prices around $76,000 and $87,000 for the past few weeks since that period here at the beginning of March, since we moved into this particular zone. We've had a number of different events happening over the course of the past few weeks. A lot of the stuff to do with tariffs having an impact not just on Bitcoin and crypto, but on equities and the stock market as a whole as well. If I jump over very quickly and look at the S&P, we had a very big downwards move here on Friday. Last Friday, with it closing down here at 5074. However, despite the fact that the S&P made a negative 5.97% move on Friday, Bitcoin actually had a green candle on the daily candle yesterday. We can see Bitcoin's daily candle closed here around 83.8, which was a 1.5 to 2% gain on the previous day. And for the first time ever, I believe, on the same day when equities and the S&P had a greater than 5% downwards move, Bitcoin closed up 1.5 to 2%, which is a pretty phenomenal move for Bitcoin, holding strong in the midst of all the uncertainty around the tariffs and with the uncertainty of the stock market pulling back almost 6% in a single day as well. Pretty amazing that Bitcoin was able to hold strong and is still holding pretty strong here at 82.8. About 24 hours later here at the weekend. So again, we are still below the 200-day simple moving average for the price of Bitcoin. Technically, we could say that this is a higher low compared to what we experienced here back on March 10th and 11th. The next major level of support still in play here at 73.5, 73.6, where we peaked out here back in Q1 of 2024. We had resistance here again at the end of October before making that much bigger move to the upside. We came all the way back down to retest 76.6 before moving higher here, and we've been trying to reclaim the 200-day simple moving average for the past few weeks without much success. However, the thing I wanted to hone in on today's video is discussing a little bit about the global M2 and the fact that has been rising since Q1 of this year. Again, there's a lot of content and debate here around the global M2 and the time shift that is most accurate for how Bitcoin is tracking the price action of global M2 moving to the upside. This current chart has a 105-day offset or time shift. If we change this and bring it back all the way to zero, you'll understand the point that I'm making here is we actually saw global M2 increasing here throughout the course of Q1. So we had a drawdown in global M2 throughout Q4 of 2024, peaking up here at around 95 trillion, moving down to 92 trillion before bottoming out here at the middle of January and making much bigger moves to the upside throughout the remainder of Q1. Again, if you're not familiar with this global M2 liquidity index, you can check out this indicator for yourself by typing in M2 global liquidity index. And again, big shout out to Christian Hutra, who put together this specific time shift indicator that we can use on TradingView. And again, if we plug in an offset here for 105 days, the reason we're doing this is because Bitcoin historically and typically follows global M2 with an 8 to 12 week lag. If we put in that time shift, what it means is you can see the correlation between Bitcoin price action following M2 with that 105-day offset. So you saw Bitcoin running up here in Q4 of 2024 because global M2 had run up in Q3. But we saw on the chart a moment ago, global M2 peaked at October of 2024 and drew down in Q4 of 2024. So while Bitcoin was moving to the upside with that 8 to 12 week time delay, global M2 was actually moving down in Q4, and we didn't see that reflected in the price of Bitcoin until Q1 of 2025. And what we're seeing now, statistically speaking, is that Bitcoin does follow M2 with that 105-day offset. I believe that 105-day offset is statistically most accurate when it comes to measuring it on a percentage basis. And what that means is we could be in for a couple more weeks of chop here before we finally see Bitcoin following global M2 on the upside. Again, this is not guaranteed, guys. We're just looking at historical data using global M2 as a reference point. 83% of the time, Bitcoin does follow global M2. And with more liquidity in the system, more people being able to use that additional capital, some of that typically does flow into risk-on assets, just like Bitcoin and stocks as well. But if we project out here, it would show us that we could be actually bottoming for that M2 price here by the 25th of April. So you can see that with the time shift, obviously this bottomed around the 10th of January with zero time shift on the actual global M2 index. But what it means is we could see, if Bitcoin does follow it, that Bitcoin would bottom by the end of April here and make a bigger move to the upside throughout May and June. Again, it's not guaranteed, but we're looking at the probabilities here and the likelihood of it following by about 83%. Again, we may not even come all the way down here, but it could be a bit more sideways chop before making that bigger move to the upside. It could also mean we come down to retest this level here at around $73,000 before making that move as well. It all depends on what's going to happen, how the markets are absorbing this tariff situation. We can see the stock market making lower moves here on the past week or so. Bitcoin holding a little bit stronger, but we need to see what happens next week as we see equities and the stock market open again on Monday. And if we're going to continue further, or if we get a little bit of a bounce, we are actually seeing particular nation states like Argentina coming to agreements with the United States to have zero tariffs and have essentially an agreement in place following a lot of the stuff that happened over the past week or so. So we may see other nation states beginning to come and agree terms and deals with the United States with regards to tariffs so that they can get agreements just like Argentina, and we don't end up in a bidding war for the tariff situation. Definitely, we're going to see a bunch of nation states following with those type of agreements. I'm sure there will be other nation states that do continue to go back and forth for a little bit longer. So we may have that had to play out over a few weeks before seeing that move to the upside. Again, this is all speculation, guys. I'm just trying to lay out the situation here as I'm seeing it in terms of what could happen with the price of Bitcoin following global M2 over the coming months. Nothing is guaranteed, of course, as always. And if we hide this again, I think if we zoom out here on the chart, we can still see that we are technically in a very strong uptrend for the price of Bitcoin, going all the way back to 2023 when we had those bigger moves being made in the second half of 2023. Obviously, a more parabolic run up here as we hit Q4 2023 into Q1 of 2024. Lots of sideways movement here, retesting that trend line, bouncing off of it, making a much bigger move to the upside. And then, of course, we're having this 20 to 30% pullback since those January highs. And if we measure that out here from the peak to the trough, you can see that peak to trough is literally 30%. We're technically down about 24-25% from January highs for the prices that we're at today. As long as we can maintain this particular trend, I think we can still declare that we're in a broader bull market if we can hopefully bounce here and make a bigger move to the upside, or have us move a bit more sideways before making a sharper move upside. I think that's what I'm looking for to happen over the course of the next 6 to 12 months. Again, just one person's opinion here on the chart, guys. Take this with a pinch of salt. Always do your own research when it comes to looking at Bitcoin, making investments in the crypto space. This is not financial advice. A couple of other very quick charts I want to look at. Total crypto market cap has also been struggling to get back up above the 200-day simple moving average. We came all the way down to retest this level at 2.45 trillion, ran back up to retest, try get above the 200-day, but we got a textbook rejection here, came back to the downside. Again, we are still technically in a larger uptrend. I'd like to see this holding here, getting a bounce and moving back to the upside. Again, total 3 not looking as good here either, with crypto total market cap excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. This is essentially the performance of altcoins, and you can see we're below the 200-day simple moving average as well. I would like to see this making a bigger move to the upside. Zooming out to the weekly chart, we know that if we go all the way back to 2021, this sharp move to the upside was really what indicated altcoin season in Q1 and Q2 of 2021. But we haven't seen that type of move being made. We did see a few weeks of outperformance here for alts versus Bitcoin and Ethereum when we were in that move that we made in November into December. But I think in order to truly see a larger, broader altcoin season, we need to see the total 3 moving sharper to the upside, and maybe that won't happen until Bitcoin dominance actually peaks out. We can see Bitcoin dominance has been moving higher here on both the daily and weekly charts over the past number of weeks. If we zoom in here on the chart, again, every day we've been putting in pretty much bigger moves for Bitcoin dominance to the upside. We're currently retesting this particular level that we got all the way up to here back in March of 2021. This level acted as resistance when we had the breakdown in Bitcoin dominance from the last cycle. We're actually getting rejected from it right now as we speak. If we zoom in here for the past couple of days, we have not been able to close above that level. Maybe this is the turning point, maybe it's not. A lot of people arguing that we need to go all the way back to 71% for Bitcoin dominance before we see a breakdown in dominance for Bitcoin. Again, you can see that 71% level, if we zoom out on the chart here, is pretty much where we peaked out or got up to here at the peak of the last cycle for Bitcoin dominance before that breakdown in Q1, Q2. Maybe we extend back up to 71% and this area before getting a breakdown. Maybe we get rejected from here around where we're at right now before seeing the breakdown. Again, we need to wait and see what happens throughout Q2, but I do think and I do hope Q2 will be a little bit better on the whole compared to Q1, given that we have that global M2 increasing since Q1, and Bitcoin does typically follow it with that 8 to 12 week delay. So let's see what happens. Again, this is not financial advice, guys. Always make sure to do your own research. That's the quick update for today's video. If you got any value at all today, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up on your way out the door. Make sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification icon as well. And very, very quickly, today's video is sponsored by Femex, the most efficient crypto trading and investment platform. Again, if you want to check out Femex, I'm going to leave a referral link in the description below this video. You can check it out for yourself. Tons of assets available for trading, purchasing, and futures contracts over on Femex for you as well. Again, not financial advice. Always do your own research. Check out the link below. And as always, don't forget to grab your completely free copy of The Rise of Bitcoin. It's a link below the video. Grab it down below, and we'll catch you in the next one.